All right, so now we're going to talk about the second stage of labor and pushing and birthing positions. And with me today, I have two experts. So would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, I am Shannon Vogt. I am a family physician. I deliver babies, and I've also had 3 babies of my own.
Awesome.
And I'm Karen Brown, and I'm a certified professional midwife, and I do births at home.
Awesome. Okay, and you are also very special to me because this is my sister, and this is my midwife for the last 2 births. So let's talk about quickly positions. So we're going to show you some positions where the tailbone is flexible and some where the tailbone is not flexible. In general, you want to avoid positions where the tailbone can't move because that narrows the space that the baby has to come out. Also, when we talk about positions, one of the things we know from the evidence is that upright positions do really increase your chances of having a normal birth. You're more likely to have a forceps or vacuum delivery if you're lying on your back or in a semi-sitting position. You're also more likely to have an episiotomy if you're lying on your back or sitting in a position. So what we're going to demonstrate first for you is positions that you could use with an unmedicated birth, and then we'll talk about medicated birth. Karen, you're the home birth midwife, so what kind of positions do you women mostly end up in an unmedicated birth?
Majority of them are on either hands and knees or in a kneeling position.
Okay. So would hands and knees be with like a birth ball or something?
Not
or?
in
necessarily. Sometimes
the
they just
tub.
support themselves on their hands. Sometimes they use a stack of pillows.
Okay.
Sometimes a birth ball. Sometimes their couch. It just depends. If they're in the birth pool, then they use the side of the pool typically. And they're more of a modified hands and knees kneeling.
Kind of hanging over
Yeah,
the
depending
edges
on
of
how deep the water is. But sometimes they just support themselves purely on hands and knees. Sometimes they lean on their partner. That's another way they can do that position.
Okay, so we'll pretend that you're having an unmedicated birth, and
Okay.
we'll get you in some positions.
So, I'm trying to remember how I have it. I think it's usually more like something like this. But when I had one hands and knees birth in the hospital, and it was like kind of like this. And then when you're ready to push, you kind of can like lean back like that.
Okay, so she's kind of leaning back as she's pushing.
And then in between, you can kind of rest or do whatever, or just like close your eyes. But you kind of just stay like that. So
Now, how would you do that? Obviously at home you have a lot of props you could use. So in the hospital, how would you do this?
So in the hospital, they can change the bed so that they make the top part of the bed like higher, and then put a bunch of pillows there. I don't know. The beds move, so they can make it so you can lean on it.
Okay, so that's kind of a kneeling position, and then show them like what a hands and knees might look like without a prop.
Without a prop? I don't know. I had a hands
Yeah.
and knees baby.
Yeah,
Like this?
That's it exactly.
Like
That's
that.
it exactly.
Okay, and why do you think people prefer that position, Karen?
I think because it does open the pelvis more, so it just feels easier to push that way. And it's also nice because even though upright can help you push, it can also make you push too fast. So that's kind of an in-between. You have some gravity helping you. You have your pelvis able to open more, but it also allows you to be able to control your pushing a little bit more and not push so fast so that you have a tear. So I think that's why. I think it's just a natural position for pushing.
That people end up in.
I think also
Yeah, it just feels good.
it doesn't require much. You could be by yourself. You're not by yourself, but you don't need anyone supporting
Holding,
you
yes.
or holding anything. You can just do it.
Okay. So let's do one maybe. So squatting is one you hear about a lot. Is that something that you see a lot, Karen, or not?
I actually don't see as much squatting. I think because the mom has to spend more of her energy and muscles keeping herself in position that way. Sometimes we will do that. We'll encourage that position if we have a first-time mom that's having to push harder because it gives her a little more force to work with. But usually it does take a second person to give her some extra
So we would
support
probably
for it.
have to be holding on to her.
Yeah, somebody would either be like
you-
this,
yeah, you-
or you'd have a partner behind.
Yeah, I
Doing
did this.
this?
So I've done this with some of my patients in the hospital, and then they also have a bar.
Yeah.
And you can get that. And they're usually, but the problem is in between, they feel uncomfortable, so then they have to stand up in between squatting, and then they squat down. So again, it can get tiring. They might push like that for a little while, and then sometimes they kind of recline. And I don't know if we can do a different one that I can show you, but
Birth
yeah.
stools are really nice for kind of a
in between.
squatting type position too.
But you could do this and
I
give
actually
birth
have
like this. I've also had a patient who was sort of standing squatting, but that's pretty hard to control.
Well, you just wear out.
You can
so
kind of
fast.
just be like this, but then you have to be careful.
So
You
that
catch
would
the
be
baby.
better for maybe a birth that's happening more quickly.
No, because you don't want the baby to fly out on the floor. So that's not good either. This is not really the best position in the world, but if that's how they feel comfortable, that's fine.
And that's kind of what the evidence shows, is that there's really no one position that is preferred over another. So it's really all about comfort.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll say too, sometimes with the more of a squatting position, a mom who's having a hard time getting her baby past the pubic bone will do that for a while to kind of give them
Get
that
it
extra
back,
force, and then once the baby passes that point, mom chooses another position.
Yeah,
or a
so
semi-sit or-
changing positions, you can push like this and then move. So squatting is good, like she said, for a little while to kind of get things moving, and then you might move into something more comfortable for the actual birth. Like I said, I had, for my first baby, I tried squatting for a while, and it was fine, but it was just, you feel like you're working so hard. So then what we did was, there was a squatting bar, and we tied a scarf, or you can use a sheet, and you tied it to the bar, and then my husband sat behind me, and then I was able to kind of, with each push, I pulled on the sheet, and you're sort of squatting, I can't really demonstrate it on the couch.
And so that's the kind of thing, you probably had a doula showing you how to do that,
she
right?
Show me. She set it up. So basically, you're like this.
Where's your rebozo?
Yeah,
it's right there.
But you don't have a squatting bar, so
Right, but
I guess
even
you
then,
can have a
I've done this
person.
with someone holding the scarf. So,
Yeah.
even if you
So
have
then
that and
You can
somebody's
see.
kind of pulling
you
back
can,
on
like
it.
more. It's kind of in front of the
And get
camera,
this
but
way.
I can
Yeah.
fall off. So
But
more
yeah,
like
you can do it that
this.
way and just have somebody.
And so this is one of the reasons why it's great to have a doula, or
Alrighty.
you're not even doing it and it's hard
But that
work.
has how I gave birth to my first baby. It worked really well for that birth. So I don't know.
So whatever works for you, basically.
Yeah, whatever works. Yeah, each one has been a little different. So I think it just kind of depends.
So do people give birth on their beds sometimes at home?
they do.
They do. And will they be lying, or how do they usually lie?
They'll semi-sit. I rarely have seen anyone lay flat.
Kind of like this.
Yeah.
Like leaning up against
Yeah,
the
usually
pillows?
they have lots of pillows behind them and they're kind of propped up.
Yeah.
So this is another position you're
So, yeah,
demonstrating.
so
Sideline.
The sideline, because that's easy to in the bed.
Well,
So, and
Can I-
Karen, do you mind
Yeah,
showing
I was
us?
gonna show you. A lot of times if I'm doing somebody on a bed that's sideline, I'll have them put their foot actually on my shoulder
You
so
use
that
a
I
brain
have
ball, too.
access to where baby's coming, but
Yeah.
they have something to put their
Yeah,
leg on.
'cause
And if
this
you
is-
have another
need to-
person,
yeah.
it's nice to have them do this part.
So you have to have somebody supporting that leg if you're side lying.
Not always. I've had moms, if you put
You
your
can-
leg down,
They can hold
I've
it.
had moms birth just like that with their leg down.
But a lot of moms, if they need some opening, they're gonna have to pull up.
Yeah. And
You can
And one of the
set it
benefits of this
on
is you
something,
can be resting in between the waves and the contractions, but also your tailbone isn't being pressed flat against the
Right.
bed, right?
well, and it also helps for mom to control when the head comes out, so to slow it down so she doesn't tear. So it helps with that too. Actually, I really like moms to do a sideline, but you don't see it as often in some
I
of
do
the other
it. So it's a
positions.
good epidural position.
Okay, yes, let's
we
talk
can
about
transition, but,
epidural. Yeah.
because you can do this one with an epidural really easily. So I like that one because they don't have to have a lot of feeling or strength. They can just be laying down. So.
It's
don't
all
see it
about
that
what works for you, right?
Yeah.
So talk to us about upright positions with an epidural. So right now, evidence shows that there's not really one clear, better way to push with an epidural. But in your experience, what kinds of positions have you seen with an epidural? So we've talked about.
And so with an epidural, you can do like the semis kind of leaning back that we've showed, side lying. You can do in not necessarily feet in stirrups, but semi reclined, I guess, in the hospital bed. I haven't really done squatting. with the epidural because they usually just aren't. I mean, if someone has an epidural, they probably are wanting, I don't know, they're not really wanting that anyway. So usually it's just easier to kind of move them around in the bed and try something like that. So your options are to be fully on your back with the stirrups up or to be semi-reclined, you know, and we just lower the bottom of the bed so that we have a little more room. But I have patients deliver both with and without epidural, and I never use the stirrups usually, unless sometimes sideline I'll have one up just to like set their leg in. But that's it. So
why do you think so few physicians support all of these variety of positions? Because I know you're kind of unique. There's not many physicians like you.
I think they have to get comfortable with a baby coming out upside down. So a lot of them, sideline doesn't seem so strange, but everybody they train, like just imagine they do hundreds and hundreds of births training, and they're all these patients in stirrups on their backs or semi on their backs, and they're, you know, the baby always comes out the same way. So they're kind of ingrained, like this is how this is done, and I think it's really hard for them. They're like, when someone's on their hands and knees, they're like, oh, I don't know where anything is, and they feel really
Disoriented,
and they're afraid. No one's ever taught them how to deliver a baby that way, because a lot of them are used to doing a lot of the stuff where they deliver the shoulders. So, you know, you just have to know how that, you know, it's really no different actually, and that's kind of the key, is that you do it the same way. You don't have to flip your movements. You just do it the same. So,
but there's a lot of fear. Probably.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of feeling like if something goes wrong, they don't know how to step in with a patient in that position. So even though there'd be plenty of time either way. So that's kind of the main thing.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I know you have to go. So
yes, thank you.